Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Hayes, and today I want to talk about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, or as I like to say, we're going to stare at the fog of war. So, hey, we have a counteroffensive at last, and this is something that people have been anticipating for a while, and we saw the run up to it. We saw the attacks, the Ukrainians were using the HIMARS missiles we gave them to attack the bridges across the Dnipro River, down by Kherson and north of it. And then we've seen these mysterious explosions in Crimea and behind the lines, and logistics facilities blowing up, that sort of thing. And it turns out that these have been preparations for the offensive. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on, the Russians have, taken Kherson, right? Earlier in the war, they took the capital of Kherson, which is to the south, in the southern part of Ukraine, along the Dnipro River. Now, the Dnipro River runs from Kiev, runs eastern into the country before turning south, going down. And at some points, this thing is miles wide, it's tens of miles. It's almost like an inland sea at places. But when you get down towards Kherson, which is near Crimea, you're getting closer to the ocean. And there's a period where the river is relatively narrow. There are actually 3 bridges over it in this part, and Kherson is one of them. And so this is the only place, by the way, that Russian forces are on the western bank of the Dnipro River. Also, Kherson is the only regional capital they took. So it's a very significant pocket of Russian forces that the Ukrainians are trying to reduce. And they are basically folks with their backs to a river. And the Ukrainians have degraded the 3 bridges over it. They haven't destroyed them. They want to keep them there for civilians to be able to use. But they have been attacking them, damaging them so that large amounts of freight, armored vehicles, that sort of thing can't come across. The Russians are ferrying people across on pontoons, and they're doing other things to get supplies across to their troops on the western bank. But Ukraine is attacking, and so we're seeing this offensive underway, and it's been long anticipated. In fact, for a while, folks there were people who were saying, "Oh, the Ukrainians say they're going to launch this offensive in the south, but they're not doing it. This means that they're weak, that they haven't been able to generate forces, that their losses have been too much." And there was a lot of hand wringing. So the very fact that they're doing this, I think, may be the big lead, right? I mean, it could fail, right? Offensives fail, but they are able to take the offensive. They are, that's a signal or a sign that they are, in fact, not as weak as some feared. Right now, of course, a successful offensive would be a better sign. But so I think it's been long anticipated. The question is it going well? And I think this is a thorny one. In fact, I sometimes post little TikTok things, short little things, and I had a lot of, I said, it seems to be going fairly well, and I got a lot of pushback. People saying, "Well, no, what are you talking about?" Well, here's the thing. First of all, it's well begun is half done, and from my point of view, a methodical preparation was made for this, right? And so it seems to me that they're going about this the way they need to. They're also, what I've been able to see from reporting, especially at the Institute for the Study of War, is that they are in a position where they are going to try to maneuver forces out. And the Russian forces in the area seem to be not very well. They seem, trained. They have a lot of separatist forces from Luhansk and Donetsk that have been complaining about not being supported. And so, they are able, they've set the conditions, and the Russians have actually helped them out, right, by not, reinforcing this area as they were fighting up in Luhansk. So, is it going well? I think it's going to be hard to tell. It's also, this is not going to be a blitzkrieg, right? It is not going to be like Operation Desert Storm, where in 100 hours, after a month of bombing, mind you, In 100 hours, we stormed Kuwait, right? The United States just stormed in. And I think you have to keep in mind the U.S. had really heavy forces. It had lots of international support. We had Egyptian divisions, Syrian divisions involved in this. So, I mean, we just really had this huge force. So that was a blitzkrieg. The American invasion of Iraq and Operation Iraqi Freedom, that took 22 days to get to Baghdad. Now, Baghdad's a long way to go, admittedly, but it took a while because they had to be more deft in their use. Also, a huge thing here, the Ukrainians are in a position where they have to kind of get the Russians to leave on their own. They have to kind of squeeze them out. They can't do what the Russians do, which is to blow the crap out of a city and then occupy it. Because it's their city, they want it back, and their people are still in it. They also, for that same reason, don't want to be street-to-street fighting. So they're going to be doing a lot of maneuvering, trying to wear them down. And for a long time, it's going to look like nothing's happening, right? There's going to be a lack of fighting. There's going to be maybe a lack of movement as they are positioning themselves to try and ease the Russians out. And so that's, for a long time, the optics are not going to be good. Also, this could fail, right? I mean, they're doing something that's very hard. And so it could fail, or at the very least, it could take a long time. Of course, these forces could collapse. It could be they're a house of cards and collapse in the next week. But, it's going to, here, I guess that's the thing, is until the collapse occurs, it may not look like it's going to occur. And this is why I say we have this fog of war, right? We're welcome to the fog of war. The Ukrainians are doing something that is not going to be obviously successful. They've also adopted an attitude of operational silence. The folks at ISW say that, they've been asking for people not to report and not to forecast and not to say much about what they're doing. Okay, I'm not talking. I don't have any private information, right? So I'm not breaking any operational security. I think actually what the points I'm making are important to make, that if you look at this information environment, the Ukrainians are silent, and meanwhile the Russians are going crazy with, especially their military bloggers are proclaiming that there's been a failure in the operation, right? So they're proclaiming that the whole thing is a failure right from day one. And they are speaking very loud into an empty space the Ukrainians are not speaking in. So we run the risk of being kind of distracted by the person shouting the loudest, even if come on, at this point, do we think that the Russian Defense Ministry is a credible source, right? And these mill bloggers are maybe more credible with the information they share, but still. But we run the risk of having them shout loudest. So I think that's where we are, and I think we need to be patient. I think the very fact that they're doing this is a good sign. We have to be ready for them to, it would be great if they did well, but, it is a very tough task they're engaging in. So it will at the very least take time, and it may not work, but they have to try. And the very fact that they are engaged in this is probably a good sign for the long run. Thank you for watching my short rant. I hope it was short and not too much of a rant. I'm Dr. Dave Hayes, and though I teach at Troy University, this video is my own work. Troy University has neither approved nor reviewed the content. So there. And if you want to learn more about Troy anyway, figure out who would hire a guy like this, you can always go to www.troy.edu. I also am going to have a little card popping up here that you can go see my bio and some information about where I teach, which will descend to shameless self-promotion, but I want more students, what can I say? And finally, the music you've been listening to is Tonight at 8 by Shane Ivers. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back and enjoy another short rant.